So what is SnoopEE? That is a discovery service for JavaEE microservices. So we're going to talk about microservices, we're going to talk about JavaEE, and we're going to talk about discovery mechanisms for microservices. So first, what about me? Well, I've been coding Java since '95. That's more or less when Java came out. I've been doing it professionally since '98. And I'm also involved in the Java community process where we do the specifications for next versions of Java, and in my case for JavaEE. So I'm on this expert group for JSR 371, which is MVC. This is going to be a new action-based MVC framework for JavaEE 8. Also in an expert group called 368, which is JMS. We're doing some stuff to improve and make JMS easier. And also in the Java Security API expert group, which is JSR 375, where we are going to make Java security better, more secure, easier. I worked for Cybercom here in Malmö. We're located in Stockholm, and we're hiring. So if you're interested, then just go to our website. When I'm not consulting, I'm around speaking at conferences and events like this one. So the agenda for this presentation is first just to briefly go through what is service discovery. And then I'll present SnoopEE. It's pronounced SnoopEE. It used to be called Snoop, but then it started being associated with Snoop Dogg, and I think SnoopEE the dog is cuter. So, and also it's kind of related to JavaEE, and so I wanted the EE stuff in, so it's SnoopEE. And first, as I said, we'll go through service discovery just to make sure that we know what service discovery is and a little bit about microservices. And then I'll introduce SnoopEE and show a lot of code examples. And if we have time, I'll dive into the internals of SnoopEE, how it actually works. So how about microservices? How many are using microservices? Okay. How many knows what microservices are? Okay, good. Discovery mechanisms for microservices. Okay, then this is a good presentation for you. First of all, if you're going to remember one thing from this presentation, it's going to be this annotation, and that is add-enable Snoop client. And I haven't decided just yet if I'm going to rename it to add-enable SnoopEE client or if I'm just going to keep this, but for now it's add-enable Snoop client. So remember this annotation. And then we'll come back to that one, but first we'll talk about discovering microservices. And when I talk about microservices, I mean a service that is built around a business capability, such as a user service. It's built around the user, or whatever small capability serving one business domain. Right? It doesn't necessarily need to be small or simple or anything, but it's built around one domain. That is a microservice. And a microservice is often exposed through a REST API. That's more or less the standard. So if we look at a very simple image of a monolithic application, that is one big deployment unit, of course it can be organized and layered and be made use of any cool design pattern you know, and have it very well structured and modularized, but it's treated as a monolith. You deploy it as one artifact. And even if it's divided, it's tied up at build time, and then it's treated as one big artifact afterwards. And it's nothing wrong about monoliths. Monoliths have served us well and are going to serve us well in the future. So this is nothing wrong about monolith, and you probably will work more with monoliths than microservices. But this is how you think about monolithic application, is that it's one big unit. Microservices, on the other hand, is where you divide your monolithic application into services that create one domain, and you have your application that typically consume these services. And this application involves a little bit more complexity. And you also, if it's done like this, you probably haven't gained anything by dividing it into microservices, because you still, the application needs to know where service A is, so it's pretty tightly coupled anyway. And that's why you need some mechanisms to discover these services. You need to know where to find them, and that's where a discovery service come in. And in this slide, typically service A, B, and C registers itself with the discovery service. And then the application can do a lookup for service A at the discovery service, and when it gets a reference to it, it can call service A. And the same way, it can look up service B, and when it's got a reference to it, it can call service B. So what happens if one of the services goes down, like service B does here? What happens if your application now wants to call, let's see, where are we? There. When your application now does a lookup to B, it doesn't get a reference to it, and it doesn't call service B because it's not there. So the discovery service knows that the service isn't there anymore. And SnoopEE is one of these discovery services. So let's look at some background why SnoopEE is as SnoopEE is and how it's built. First of all, it's inspired by Eureka. Has anyone heard of Eureka? Okay, Spring Boot. Yes? And Netflix. Yes? So that wasn't a test question anyway. Netflix has done a really great amount of open source projects, and one of them are Eureka. And Eureka is part of a Spring Cloud services. And Spring Boot and the Spring Cloud mechanisms, they benefit from the work that Netflix has done, and it's really great stuff. But it's still Spring, and it's still Spring Boot. So let's look at how Eureka works. You have the application, you have the Eureka Discovery Service, and you have the Spring Boot applications. And to register these services with the Eureka service, you just sprinkle the add-enabled Eureka client at the services. So you see the similarity: add-enable Snoop client, add-enable Eureka client. So this was the inspiration behind Snoop, that I want the same thing, but I want to be able to do this with JavaEE applications. So this is how to do a Spring Boot application. You have the application. This is very simple one. It just starts, doesn't do anything. And you have the add-enable Eureka client, and it actually registers itself with Eureka, and you're good to go. And this is what I wanted to build for JavaEE. So just add the add-enable Snoop client, and then you have your microservices running in a JavaEE container all the way. And I also want to be able in the future to have Snoop to be able to run outside a JavaEE container, for example, in a Jetty or as a standalone jar. Or why not in something completely different that doesn't have anything with Java to do at all. But that is future of Snoop. Right now, or SnoopEE, right now it's only capable of running in a JavaEE container. And but I have partly made a REST interface to this one, so you can actually register from any client. So the philosophy of SnoopEE is that it's lean, it's non-intrusive, it's very intuitive, and it's very easily configurable. So I don't want it to be intrusive in your code that you have to do a lot of code changes just to enable SnoopEE. I just want you to add the annotation, some config file, and then you're good to go. And maybe in the future, I'll even get rid of the annotation, so you can just add the configuration file. It's very lean. This is an old picture, but the entire dependency that you just add to your application is 9Ks, so it's nothing, or next to nothing. And a normal Spring Boot application, like the one I showed you, that doesn't do anything, is typically 23 megabytes. So this is extremely much smaller because it relies on JavaEE. You have the application server, you have all the support you need. You don't have to bring it into your deployment unit. So if you're going to email this application somewhere, 9K is a hell of a lot faster than 23 megabytes. So how does the service registration of SnoopEE work? Well, you just add the enable Snoop client with the service name. And this annotation will handle everything for you, so it's registered, ready to go. And where do you put this annotation? Yeah, you can put it anywhere, but typically you do it in your application config file, where you define your API route and your REST application, because a microservice is typically a REST application. So this is pretty much exactly the same way you would do the Eureka. And the lookup mechanism is actually even easier with the SnoopEE than it is with Eureka. You have a similar annotation. It's currently called @Snoop, and just say that I want to look up this service with the name hello in my code. And in practice, what you do is that you inject a Snoop service client that is a reference to a service and just qualify it with the @Snoop annotation. And that's all you do. Then you have a reference to your hello service. And you need to consume this service. You need to be able to call it, right? And that's where the Snoop service client comes in. If you remember from the last slide, it's the stuff you inject with the @Snoop annotation. And this is a very convenient, lightweighted client of doing these service calls. It has a low-level method to get the service route, and you actually get a JAX-RS web target, so you can do normal JAX-RS client code to consume the services if you want to go really low level. Or you can just use the simple ones that has a simple get, for example. Then I actually do a GET request, and I get an optional response back. And it's optional because if the service isn't there, it's an empty optional. So then you can handle the case where the service isn't responding. But it comes with a cost to use these simple GET, because it will always do a check with the SnoopEE service to check, is the service up and running? So you'll have an extra call for everything you do. So if you rely that your service is up, then you can actually just get a reference to it and do the REST calls yourself. But then you won't be able to get the help with the optional response if it's up or down. So you should think about this when you do, if you do high performance stuff. But then you probably wouldn't go to microservices anyway. And this is a complete code example of how you can do it. I have the hello service reference. I do a simple get. I get an optional back. So the optional I can actually filter. and I can filter for HTTP 200. And if I get a 200, I just get in this case, the string entity. If it were a JSON object, you just have the object class here, and you'd get the JSON object out. But in this case, it's a string. I get string. If I didn't get an optional, I just write goodbye. Right? I call the hello service. If the hello service isn't there, I get goodbye. This could be done in any way. It depends on your application. But this is more or less how you do a normal REST call anyway. So now we looked at how you can actually register a service and how you can look up the service and consume the service. And let's just have a quick look at the configuration part, and then we'll jump into the demos. So SnoopEE needs a very small amount of configuration. It basically, the SnoopEE service needs to know where do I find the service. So you need to provide the address for where am I, and some metadata it needs for registration. We'll look at it in detail afterwards. And it's very flexible. So you can define your system properties or environment properties, or you can do it in application configuration as a YAML file. And this will typically be that you have the YAML file for a development environment. When you run it in your IDE, then you can have this YAML file in your source main resources folder. And then maybe you run it in a Docker container. Then you can just set environment variables in your Docker file. Then these would override this application. So you don't have to rebuild the application for another environment. Just put it in a container. Or if you run in an application server, you can just set the system properties for the application server and just point to where you are. And it can still contain your development properties that you use in your development environment. So you never have to reconfigure your application otherwise than do it on system level. And how does this configuration look like? It has these 4 configurations. It needs to know which host is the service running. It needs to know the port number. It needs to know where do I find the REST services. And it also needs to know where do I register myself. Where is the Snoop service? Snoop is a discovery service. And that's all configuration you need. If you're a client of a Snoop service, the only thing you need is the Snoop service configuration, because you don't need to register yourself. But if you are a microservice registering with Snoop, you're also able to look up other services because you already have everything configured and it's available for you. So you can have services that look up other services. So how is this communication between the discovery service and the services happen then? Well, we have the application, and we have the services, and we have the SnoopEE discovery service. So when the services register themselves with SnoopEE discovery service, they do it over WebSockets. So just keep a WebSocket connection up and running and ping it with every 10 seconds and say, hey, I'm still alive. So the SnoopEE service will always know that service A is alive because it's pinged me within 10 seconds. This is configurable. You can just set another timeout if you want, but this demo has 10 seconds. And when an application needs to find a discovery service, it does it over HTTP. So it just looks up. So you can actually do it from your whatever application. It doesn't need to be a JavaEE application you have here. You can just do the HTTP call. But then you won't have the Snoop service client and the @Snoop annotation to do it for you. But you can just look up the services, REST service here, get a reference, and do REST calls. And the calls to services That depends on what is your service, how is it built. Typically, it would be an HTTP call for a REST service, but it could be SOAP or anything. Snoop doesn't care, because Snoop never calls the services. It just needs to know that it's live, and this one gives it the reference to the service. But if it's something else than a REST service, you won't be able to use the Snoop service client, but you have to do it yourself. But it's not very hard. You have to do it anyway. So is it clear so far, or is it confusing? Discovery service, you know what it is? You kind of have a feeling of that you need to look up the services to be able to use it, and it's nice to know that the service is up or down before you call it. Yeah. So let's look at some demo code. Let's try to not follow the chair here. Let me see. Okay. So let's first start the Snoop service and just look at it, and I'll show how to register a hello service and call it, and then we'll look at the code and see what's actually happening here. So the Snoop service is it's oh. Okay. The Snoop service is a JavaEE application. I've chosen to package this in a Docker container so I can run most things on my computer here. So I just start my Docker container, and what I do is just to say Docker run on port 8081 and run the 1.33 snapshot of Snoop service. It's available on Docker Hub, so you can just start it. You don't have to install anything other than Docker on a computer, then you can run it. I'll show you the references to it afterwards. But it's just the Snoop service. So if I start this one, it starts up actually in a Glassfish 4.1 Docker container, and it's pretty fast. And you see ASCII Art, right? You need to have ASCII Art. Actually, when you talk to the Spring Boot guys, they are so happy with the ASCII Art in Eureka that they have to mention it every time. So I'm doing as they do, and this is much way cooler ASCII Art. So you gotta have ASCII Art. So and SnoopEE has ASCII Art. So let's look at how the web UI for Snoop service looks like. This is how it looks like. It has just a simple list of services. And as you see, there are no services because I haven't started any services. So let's start a hello service. Just have the Snoop service running here. And I'll go to this one and just start a hello service. And I'll run this one in Docker as well. And this is also a sample. It's available on Docker Hub. Enlarge it a little. It's called Snoop Hello. And I'll run it on port 8089 just so I don't have port conflicts with the Snoop service. And just run it. And this one runs in Wildfly. And I think it's Wildfly 8.2. And as you see here, it does some communication, the green stuff. And the observant one is, so you saw that here I get a, hey, hello, registered. And it registers. And every 10 seconds, it re-registers. And here it says, hey, I'm calling. So now this hello service is actually up and running, and it's registered with the Snoop service. And if I go into this one, I can see that, oh, I have a hello service registered. And I can open it, and I can see that the hello resource returns hello. And then let's look at a consumer of the hello service. And then I have a Hello World example. And this one is a really simple application. As you see here, it's a JavaEE 7 application. This one is actually using one of the specifications I'm working on, the MVC. So I'll show you some code how to do the new MVC framework in JavaEE. And since it's not available until JavaEE 8, you need to have these two dependencies in your POM. Otherwise, these are not needed because it will be part of version 8. In addition to this, the only thing you need is the Snoop client. So let's look at how this, we can have a look at the code as well. You see this one has absolutely no configuration other than it just says that this is my controller class. And the controller is very simple. It's the new MVC. It has the add-in controller annotation. It says that the path is hello world. It's very much like JaxRS because it's built upon JaxRS, so it's very similar. And here you see I have the injections for the hello service, and I also have a world service. The models object is a part of the MVC framework. So what I do here is that I call the hello service, and this is the exact same example as I had on the slides. I call hello. I get the string. If the service isn't responding, I print goodbye. And also, do a call to another service called world. And if I don't get anything, I'll just print an empty string. I'll just combine it together, put it in the model object, and show it from the JSP page. Let's run this one. And just to have another server running, this one is on Pyara. Have anyone heard of Pyara? Okay. Pyara is a supported commercially version of Glassfish. So it builds on Glassfish 4.1.1, and it's a UK-based company that provides commercial support for Glassfish under the name of Pyara. So it's a excellent application server. It's just like it's basically Glassfish, a fork of Glassfish. So if I go into the hello world and just refresh this page, let's see if it answers. It writes hello, and it gets it from the hello service. But this could be hard-coded in JSP as well. So let's stop the hello service and see what it returns then. So I go in here and I kill this one. And you see immediately SnoopEE discovers this and says, hello, it's deregistered. And if I go into the SnoopEE service registry, you see it's not there anymore. So what happens to the hello here? We refresh this one, it says goodbye. That's the code says if I don't get a hello, then, or if I don't get a response from it, then return goodbye. So let's start the hello service again and have a look at how the world service is, and then start that one afterwards. So the SnoopEE world service is also a very simple JavaEE application. And it has the Snoop dependency. This one needs the entire Snoop, not only the Snoop client, because this one is registering itself. And it has a configuration file where it says, I'm running on localhost on 8080. This is my service route, and this is the Snoop service. And if you're observant here, you see that this is actually my old Docker URL before I switched from boot to Docker machine. So this one wouldn't work. anyway. But since I'm running it, I'm not running it on localhost because I'm already running the Payara server on localhost, so I don't want to run this one as well. I'm running this one in Docker, and to package this one in Docker, I'm using a Maven plugin that is created by Spotify. You know Spotify, right? And they have made this pretty cool Docker plugin. So in my Maven POM, I'll just say that this is what I want it to be called. This is some files, a copy of it, the Wildfly configuration. This is on Wildfly 8, I see. And I add these configurations here. And these configurations here are the exact same that you can find in the SnoopEE YAML file. It's the host, port, service route, and the Snoop service. But here I have prefixed them with world. And since it's environment variable, and I want to be able to run multiple services in the same environment, if I prefix it with the service name, I can. Then it won't conflict. So I can have multiple services running in the same environment, actually to different Snoop services if I want to. It's very flexible. And this is like environment variables. If I want to override this, I just set the variables on the Docker command. But this one will be included in the Docker file. And the application itself is very simple. It has this enable Snoop client. It says, hey, my name is world, and I have these two resources. And the world resource, which is the interesting one, returns world. And just to show you that I'm not kidding here, I can put a couple of exclamation marks so we see that it's actually compiled and I run it. So if I go out here and I actually build it again, install Docker build. So I build it and I package it in a Docker container. It's pretty easy, and here you can see the Docker commands. This is actually what you would put in your Docker file, but the plugin does it for me, so I don't have to bother about that one. Let's make it bigger, and then I can just run it. You see the name here is Snoop World. This is the one I'm running here. There, I'm running on port 8092, and I start it. Let's check the hello service is running. This one is coming up, and it's registering itself. If we look at here you see world has registered itself, hello has registered itself. We can look at the registry. Hey, we got both of them. What will this one say then? Hello world with exclamation mark. So it's very quick to run, and it works like a charm. And I also said that, hey, you can override this one with system properties, because now I'm using environment properties in Docker, right? To say where is the Snoop service. But I happen to know that there is a very cool Snoop service available on Amazon that has a couple of other services running, and they are also world and hello. So what if I want to call these from my application? Do I need to restart it? Or do I need to build it again? Do I need to configure my Docker file? As it happens, no. This one just has to reload because I started a server. I'll go into the Payara server administration console, and if you use Glassfish, you probably know that this is exactly the same. It just says Payara. Payara, by the way, has hashtag #badassfish. So if you want to search for it, it's a cool server. So I just go down, find the system properties, and I say add a property, and I said I want to add Snoop service, and I want to point it to my Amazon service. I save it. I go back to my application here, and I refresh the page, and it says JFocus, the internet was so bad here, I couldn't upload the world service that actually said welcome to Java Forum. So this was last month in Stockholm. So you see, it's just to change the properties, runtime, pointed to another Snoop service. And to show that I'm not kidding here, let's go into the world service, for example, and see that this one returns to JFocus Stockholm. So this is actually the one that is returned. So you can see you can do it runtime and just change how it works. But this isn't enough, because maybe you're not happy with running in an application server. Maybe you're not happy to run in a Docker container, because this is new, cool technology. I want to go back to basics. I want to build a fat jar, because that's what people do nowadays, right? Spring Boot is fat jars. It's all about fat jars. As I say, make jar, not war. Let's make a jar here as well. Or make a jar and a war, because we've built in support for something called Swarm. Have you heard about Wildfly Swarm? No? Wildfly Swarm is a way to embed a Wildfly container in your jar file. It's kind of like Spring Boot. You embed a Tomcat or Jerry or whatever in your application. This is, you pick parts of Wildfly you want to have in your application and run it, and it is a JavaEE environment. So run it as a JavaEE application. Let's look at how it looks. To get this work, I'm saying that I don't want the Snoop or the Snoop client. I want the Snoop Swarm. And Snoop Swarm, I'll show you afterwards what it is. It's just a POM. Let's say it has a couple of dependencies, amongst them Snoop. And I want JaxRS because it's a REST application. But this is provided to me by Wildfly Swarm. So just have a Wildfly Swarm plugin. It's alpha, so we wouldn't use it in production, but it's pretty cool. And here I set the port to 8093. You can do it by system variables or environmental variables when you start the application. But let's just do it in POM here, for simplicity. And the application itself is a configuration, which is exactly like the hello. It just calls itself Swarm. It has the enable Swarm, and it has a root resource and a hello resource. And a hello resource is exactly as the other one, just that it says bzz. I don't know how Wildfly sounds, but it sounds probably a little bit more like bzz than hello. So the Swarm service says bzz. Let's see if it really does that. And it has path hello, but it is registered as Swarm. So let's, and the other configuration for simplicity and is here. I run it on localhost on port 8093, and this is the API, and this is the service it's going to register itself with. So the way I do this is I just do Maven clean install, and I've done that. And what I then do is to write, okay, I'll just clear. Java jar is a fat jar. Snoop hello swarm dash swar.jar. And if we look at the target folder, you see that it's the Maven build has created a war and a swarm.jar. And the swarm.jar contains the Wildfly stuff that I need and the war file, and runs together. So I can run it as a java.jar, the swarm jar. Let's see what happens. And you see it starts Wildfly. And it starts the resources I need and registers the EJBs and everything I have. And it does the communication with Snoop. And if you look at the Snoop service, it says that I got a swarm registered up. So then the web console should actually show that we have a swarm service as well. And we do. And the swarm service says, bzz. But we want to call this from our application, right? And then we need to go back, and now we actually need to redeploy, because now we're doing code changes here. Let's close everything and go into the, where is my SnoopEE console? By the way, which IDE are you using? If you're not using NetBeans, then you're using it wrong, because NetBeans is the most powerful IDE for JavaEE development. So I can recommend have a look at NetBeans if you're not doing that. So let's do a call to the Swarm service as well. I just copy it to be fast, and I say this is called Swarm, and it's called Swarm. And let's do a call to the Swarm service. And the name of the service was hello. So this should be I've got a Swarm response, and let's just add it at the end of, or replace the world with it. So we're doing the hello stuff, and then we're putting the Swarm at the end. So let's rebuild. And run it. And we're up and running. If I go into this application here, it still says hello to JFrog Stopping. That's because I'm using the other Snoop service, and the Snoop service on Amazon doesn't know about Swarm because I haven't registered it there. But this one knows about the Swarm. So let's go. Let's close it. There. Let's go and remove this configuration. Delete properties, save, and go back. Where are we? There. And just write hello biz. Right? Now I needed to recompile and rebuild and redeploy because I did code changes. If I just do configuration changes, I don't need to. If I now do point it back to my, call it production URL. Okay, let's get it right. Let's cancel it. Where are we? Delete it. So, if I point it back to this one, it should return hello and nothing, because we said that it shouldn't return anything from the if it didn't get a biz, and it's not listening to the world anymore. So even if the world is running, it doesn't care about it. So I see that the pizza is here, so let's do a quick recap and then do some eating. So what I did was to run the Hello World application in Payara. I had the SnoopEE discovery service in Docker and Glassfish 4.1. I ran a Hello in Docker Wildfly 9. I had a Docker on Wildfly 8 there. I had Wildfly Swarm running. I also ran it, but I didn't do that now. We can do it after the pizza in Liberty profile from WebSphere. It's JavaEE 7, so it works. So it's very, you can use it in any JavaEE server. We also saw that I used a SnoopEE service was running in the Amazon EC2 container services. It was running in Docker on Amazon. And these were running in Docker on Amazon as well, but these were running on an EC2 instance. So this was using the container services, was using just regular stuff. And they registered with the WebSockets, and we did the call over. And this one didn't register with Amazon because it had registered with the old local SnoopEE. So if you want to get started with SnoopEE, what you do is first you just have to add a Maven dependency. Currently it's version 1.3.0, I think it's the released one. I think I have a 1.3.2 actually that is released, and it's 1.3.3 snapshot up there. Just need to Snoop enable your service by having the @enable Snoop client, give it the service name. Have to configure it, do it locally or with system or environment properties, depending on your environment or needs. The application that consumes the service only needs a Snoop service configuration, and you can do that runtime. And one question I get is SnoopEE a load balancer? And the answer is no, it's not, and it shouldn't be, and it should never be. What will happen if you have several services running behind a load balancer? Well, you would have the situation that service A registers itself with SnoopEE's discovery service. And at some point later, you run up service A2, and it registers itself with SnoopEE discovery service. But the endpoint that it registers itself with is the load balancer. So when the application does a lookup, it gets a reference to the load balancer, and the application does a call to the load balancer, and we never, ever care if it's A1 or A2 or whatever that we're calling, because that's the load balancers should know which to call, how it's, however it's load balanced. And we just know in SnoopEE that some service is running there. We don't know how many, and we don't care, and we shouldn't care. This is where you find information about SnoopEE. This is a page just directing you to the samples and the GitHub repo, and everything is open source. It's MIT license, which means use it, do whatever you want with it, but don't blame me if something goes wrong. And remember, @enable Snoop client is what you need to get started.